Hello, my name is David Brandt, and welcome to my presentation about emojis and their role in technical communication today. In today's presentation, we will go over the following topics. We will look at defining emoticons, we'll talk about a brief history of where they started, then we'll move into an emoticon evolution, we'll look at how we use emoticons today, and then we'll talk about emoticons and their role in technical communication. Again, thank you for joining me, and I hope that you're able to find some of this information insightful. So to begin our presentation, let's look at the definition of emoticons. An emoticon is a group of keyboard characters that typically represent a facial expression or suggest an attitude or emotion that is used especially in computerized communication. A great example of where we use these are in our email. We can thank the Merriam-Webster dictionary for this definition. There are a few different theories about the origin of where emoticons come from. One of the very first is a poem, To Fortune, by Robert Herrick in 1648. It is thought that this might be the first time that we see the smiling emoji being used. After some additional research, it seems that this just might have been a typo and not the actual intentional use of an emoticon. So let's fast forward to 1881. We can look at Puck magazine, which used typographical art as the first intentional display of using different symbols to convey emotions. Here are some examples that the magazine published as what we would know to be today as some of the first emoticons. But as many things in their primary state, the use of these first emoticons were pretty clunky in the beginning. So let's jump forward another century to Pittsburgh, 1982. A professor of computer science, Scott Fahlman, at Carnegie Mellon, was sick of people not finding the humor in some of his correspondence. In order to help the audience interpret his emails better, he decided to use two different symbols to code for what were considered jokes and what wasn't considered jokes. He would use what we better know today as the happy and the frowning face emoticons. This would be the catalyst for the development of the whole spectrum of emoticons and eventually evolve into what we know today as emojis. People would love the concept that Professor Fahlman created so much that they would take and run like wildfire with this new idea of emoticons. They would create additional emoticons showing a wider range of emotion by using different combinations of letters and symbols. We first see these updated emoticons being used on Usenet, which is a service that predates today's modern web. In Japan, in 1999, we find the birth of what we know today as the emoji. It was Shigetaka Kurita who created the modern day emoji. He wanted to make a way to ease communication in today's digital world. So he and his team created 178 emojis in a communication system. These were 12 by 12 pixelated images that quickly became popular and became a selling point for mobile carriers. From there, the evolution of the emoji continued and even keeps evolving today. Kurita does argue that today's modern emojis are really just pictures. However, they do serve the same purpose as why the original emoji was created. So thanks to Kurita's ingenuity, we can thank him for emojis like this, and this, and whatever that is. So, how do we use emojis today? It seems that they've been incorporated into many digital platforms across the spectrum. Before, we might have thought about this as just a fun way to communicate, but we now see emojis being used in emails, video conferencing spaces, and many different other digital platforms in which we interact. Do emojis help us become better communicators? It seems it could almost be a double edged sword. On one hand, we have this great tool to help communicate emotions and feelings in a simplistic way. As the evolution of emojis continues, it seems that we are developing more and more ways to create meaning through these different symbols. The downside could be that some of these meanings that are created are not universal. There is an aspect of how different emojis may be interpreted by the individual. This is where the rhetorical situation would be something that's very important to keep in mind when we use these different platforms to communicate and use emojis within them. As technical communicators, we know the importance of considering audience. This is no different when you are using emojis as part of your work. Depending on the platform in which you're using them, you should take into account aspects of accessibility, functionality, and interpretation. As we progress further into the digital age, the use of emojis doesn't seem like it's going anywhere anytime soon. As our language evolves, we as technical communicators should be on the forefront of knowing these changes and what their overall impact might be. I want to say thank you for joining me for this presentation today. I hope that you were able to find some of this information insightful. Thanks again.